Hi guys, my name is Brian and we're here at the Republic on Grand. Today we're going to be making our feature Pride cocktail featuring Tito's handmade vodka. We are very excited to be celebrating Pride all month long. I'm going to start off by first doing our hibiscus flowered extract as the start for our cocktail. So we're going to add that on there. We'll do 3 of those. Alright, that's going to give it our color, and you'll see at the end. Then we're going to start by putting in our ice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with our Tito's. And we're going to do 2 ounces of Tito's. We're also going to do 2 ounces of grapefruit juice. And then we're going to go ahead and do a splash of Cointreau. Once you have all that, then you get some more ice. Proceed to mix it and shake it very well. We'll proceed to go ahead and pour. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and top it off with some ginger beer. We're going to finish it off by giving it a small stir. And adding our topping to celebrate Pride Month all month long.
Welcome everyone to 30 Days of Pride. My name is Jen Crothers and I'm the president of Capital City Pride. We're so excited. Today is our first virtual cooking class. It wouldn't be possible though. I have to give a shout out to Facebook is our presenting sponsor, and then we're partnering with Meredith, and we're their wonderful and beautiful test kitchen. So I hope you're ready for a fun evening, and let's get it going.
Yay.
Hi guys, welcome. We got a fun day planned today, right?
I'm excited.
Good. Well, cool. Well, to kind of kick us off, we're going to be starting with a 3-course menu today, and kind of call it the Great Plains Pinchos. Great Plains, obviously, where we're located at. And the pinchos, what does that mean? You know, that basically is like a tapas, or small bites.
Oh,
it's just a fun word.
It's not beans?
No, it's not.
Oh.
Not even a pilgrim ship.
Very close, but it's spelled really weird too. So it's just kind of one of those things as a chef that, it's just very trendy. It's the newest thing out. So what we did today, though, was do something that's very approachable. We wanted to do stuff, like I said, that's reminiscent of stuff that you would find here in the Midwest, but having that chef spin on it, and celebrating some of those things that make the state great. We're going to, like I said, do 3 courses. One of those is going to be a sweet corn and hominy chowder in a shooter form. So just kind of keeping it to where we're not doing something heavy. If it's a warm day out, these are still great to go, but they're in a small portion. Then we also have a mini waffle sando. It's got it's just a sandwich. But it's open-faced, it's got a pork fritter that's Iowa's known for. And it's also got a Honeycrisp apple slaw that goes with that, so it's really nice. And then for dessert, one of my specialties is Cheesecake Lollipop. Even though I'm not a pastry chef, one of the things that you got to bring to the table is you got to be able to have something to finish off the meal with.
Cheesecake in a lollipop form?
Yes. And so with that, we've infused some flavors in it too. So blueberry is one of those flavors, which it seems like a lot of people like. Pair that with white chocolate, which those are just like, brother and sister. But there's ube in there. And so, first off, ube is not from here necessarily, but ube.
What's ube?
What is it?
You'll see it generally in like Asian cuisines. Why? It's because it's a purple sweet potato. It's very starchy. But it's interesting because what I get from it is it's like a cotton candy kind of a smell. So it's been infused inside the cheesecake, and then also is like once we dip that and we show that today, it's there's also some like ube crystals on the outside, so that way you can kind of pick up on multiple layers of flavor. So very excited to have you guys today. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm excited. So I decided I wanted to pair some wines with everything, and I thought it would be fun to try to do kind of a really delicious wines, but really great price points. So I did all the wines from Trader Joe's.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a $3 chuck?
Exactly. So I'm starting today with a Vino Verde. It's Estoril Vino Verde, and it is from Portugal. It's going to have a little bit of effervescence. It's going to be bright and crisp and really clean, and it's going to offset that beginning dish with the smokiness that that's going to have, and a little bit of that like hominy and corn. And I think this is going to match it really well. So yeah. And it comes in at a price point of $4.99.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's
I know. I love finding just a crazy cheap bottle of wine that I can serve that's delicious. And especially in the summer right now, right?
Well, guys, that sounds really nice, and that wine sounds like a great pairing. I'll jump in and say that as a chef, I'm not a sommelier. I don't know wines very well. I don't pretend to, but I can say is that, like, hey, if you can bargain hunt and you can be like, I know what great wines are for under $20. To me, I'd like to be that guy. So when I heard that you were saying that we got some really good wines at bargain prices, that's right up my alley. So.
Fantastic. Well, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Let's get started.
Cheers.
Very nice.
Right?
Yeah,
Don't-
it is really good.
Don't get me about that on a patio.
I know.
That'd
It's
be
dangerously
terrible. That
good.
is dangerously good.
So, guys, let's go ahead and while we're kind of just enjoying a few first sips, let's get the soup heaters going.
Terrific.
So, like with anything, I want to be able to teach instead of just show a recipe. So, the biggest thing is, as a chef, you know, like, what are you doing when you're doing any type of a dish or you're working in the kitchen? You want to prep the food out, you know, and then you want to cook it if you can. There'll be some back and forth, as you'll see today, is going back from the cutting board to the stove. But really, the thing is like, hey, we're making a hominy and sweet corn soup. So what we want to do is prep all the vegetables out. So that way, then we can sit here, drink some, talk some, and then just let it cook. So that way, you're just not like, you know, doing so much here and going back and forth.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there's only a couple things we need to get going right off the bat. One is we want to get the pan preheated, which we have here in the front.
Great.
So we have a saucepan, and that's over about medium high. We want to get a little bit of flame on it at first, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dice up half an onion. So, you know, with an onion, this one here is white, and what we're going to do is just look for a medium dice. You've probably chopped onions at home. Really, this is a French way or technique of doing it. But really, do what's comfortable. You know, you don't follow a chef standpoint if you're not comfortable with a knife. I use a pinch grip. I'm using very expensive, awesome, high-end cutlery. Doesn't matter. It should be fun. But do what feels comfortable. And you don't have to do it at a very fast pace. I love rocking through onions really fast. But for right now, just so you don't want to cut yourself in front of your friends, you know, just take it nice and slow and have some fun with it.
This is such a basic question, but I always wonder every time I cut an onion, how do you cut the onion to prevent tearing?
Sure. Right, that's a good question. And I think that there's some truth involved to some of the things that you hear. Usually the freshest onions are going to be the ones that have the least amount of tearing going on. Mm-hmm. White I find to be a little bit better than red onions for that too. The truth of the matter is, you use goggles. You know, if you really have an issue with tearing up, for me personally, I don't have much of an issue with tearing up.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I've done it so many times over the years, so I don't have much of an issue with it. That doesn't mean though that I might start crying in a second. I'm not going to do that.
Well, all of us might cry in a second.
Yes.
So,
I'm terrible about it, like really bad, and I have onion goggles that I use, and they look just absolutely ridiculous. And about half the time I end up walking out to the table with these ridiculous onion goggles on, and I forget because I wear glasses anyway.
Right.
But man, they work.
Huh.
Yeah.
Try that.
Another trick is like a wet paper towel.
I've tried.
I don't know why it works, but
Yeah.
it helps.
So, just real quick, guys, allspice is who we got some of our products from.
Yes.
So this one here is a bacon-infused olive oil, so we're going to actually start out our soup with that. If I could teach anything and keep it fun, it's development of flavors. So the reality is if you have a flavorful oil, even though it's a cooking medium, this is going to start everything off right, you know? Like if you're having a party, you gotta start off with the right friends. So this is kind of the same kind of thing. So we're gonna take that half of an onion that we had chopped up, and we're gonna go ahead and get it going on the stove. So at this point, you can hear, we got some sizzle going on, right? This is where some of that flavor is gonna develop. So with that being said, we're gonna add the corn along with this. And so what we're going to do here, guys, is just saute this. We're not looking for a ton of color, but what you are looking for is that slight caramelization and the softening of the onions and the corn.
Now, obviously, we're in Iowa, so we have the best sweet corn in the world. But when you're cooking it like this and you're going to be doing it with a soup, are you okay with canned sweet corn?
Sure.
Just as easily as fresh?
Sure. So it's a great question. Like, what do you do? Like, obviously, what I'd much rather be doing today is having a cob right in front of you, and I would be slicing all the kernels right off of it, you know, and that would be fresh. You know, I thought about doing it too, but what good would that do? Because you know that wouldn't be actually true for what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So the honest answer is what's next best to fresh, and what that's going to be is frozen. So it doesn't matter if it's like during the summer or not. Like if you aren't able to go and get, you know, that local sweet corn or whatever, then find the next best. Go to frozen. And you can find some really good products now, but you can still find some canned products too.
Yeah.
So real quick, hominy. You're not going to find hominy fresh.
Yeah.
That's probably the next question. What is hominy? You know, hominy is a form kind of like corn. It's been treated with lye to kind of make it what it is. It's you know, it's in the pozole, which is soup. It's in some other Mexican dishes, but it has a flavor to it, much like a corn tortilla does. You know, you won't forget it, and it's one of those flavors that I really love. So. This is going to take a couple minutes to cook down here.
Right.
While that's going real quick, guys, what we want to do is get the other things. I talked about getting the prep done, right?
Yeah.
So the other items that are going to be going into the soup today is some garlic. So mincing some garlic, you guys can buy minced. It's already, you know, and a lot of time too, you're not going to buy the cloves. You're not going to run through it. That's a problem at my house too. You buy fresh produce and it spoils, you know, even if you try really hard. So you can buy stuff that's also frozen. They have little cloves of garlic that's already minced. So this is done fresh, but this is already done. This is a couple cloves of garlic. And then what we want to do with the potatoes is you can peel them. I recommend usually peeling them, but these are some really beautiful potatoes. Most of the vitamins are located in the skin. So we're just going to go ahead and leave those skins on, and then we're just going to go ahead and then just do kind of a rough dice on these.
Nice. So while he's doing that, I'll talk a little bit about when I'm pairing wines. So obviously I wanted to get something that was going to be really refreshing, really great for summer, and that great price point. But also I wanted to get something that was really going to go along with the food that we were doing. And so I follow two different methods when I'm pairing wines. I either want the wine to really match what we're doing. So if you're doing a creamy sauce, I want a creamy wine to go with that. If I'm doing something spicy, I want something that's got a spicy finish. Or I want to go polar opposite. And that's what I try to do with this. So we've got the, you know, the bacon flavors, the corns, the potatoes. It's going to be, you know, real Midwest centered, if you will. And I wanted to get something that was going to be really crisp and clean and kind of offset that, especially because it is 90 degrees outside.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like cleansing your palate in between each bite.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And I 100% don't believe in red with certain foods and white with certain foods. I just kind of have whatever's around that I think sounds good and whatever I'm in the mood for. So that old rule, I think, is kind of out the door. And it will be today, so hope you agree.
Well, guys, this is coming along really nicely. Hopefully you guys are picking up on some of those smells getting going, whetting the appetites a little bit. But so I just dropped in the potatoes. I dropped in the garlic too. So just for the sake of
So good.
Thank you, thank you. I love that smell of garlic. So, but why would we add garlic in later? It's because we don't want it to burn. You know, that flavor of garlic is great, but if you do burn it, it's going to be retained in that flavor in the soup. So, at this point in time, there's not as much of that sizzle. There's more items in the pan. We're going to let that cook down for a couple minutes. But really, at this point now, you know, we've got a lot of our items in. When I put the corn in, I failed to mention that the hominy is in there with it as well.
Oh, great.
So the hominy and corn are together. So we've got in there right now, we've got basically all of our prep components with the potatoes, with the onions, with the corn, hominy, And what we need to do is then get in our cream mixture, okay? And so with this, you know, depending on what time of year it is where you can add more or less cream from a chef standpoint, or butter. You know, in the summertime, I try to make it a little lighter. It just makes sense. Like currently, it's been hot out lately. So we're gonna do a little bit more milk than we would cream. This right here for this recipe is 3 cups of whole milk, and then it's a cup of heavy cream.
Nice.
If it's sometime in the winter, you know, we're gonna switch that up. We might make it a little bit creamier, more stick to your bones.
So this is kind of a silly question, but I'm always worried about it if I cook something because I'm not that great of a cook. When you say, you know, you're gonna cook it down and it's kind of on the stove sizzling,
Sure.
what is that point between it's cooking and sizzling and it's burning?
Yeah, you know what? It's a great point. You know, even for professionals, you know,
Yeah.
like it's not easy. So it's different with what you're working with. So if you're working with electric stoves or gas stoves or induction, they all vary slightly. But what I would say to that is just like, you know, if you're cooking a little stronger, like in the beginning, you stay closer to that stove. You know, but when you really want it to let it like cook, you know, you got to find that happy medium. And what that's going to be is us turning it down to like medium low.
Okay.
You know, that's at a point generally if you're using gas or electric where, you know, that you can still walk away from it a bit. It's still kind of working, doing its thing, but there's nothing too aggressive going on where you're going to get to over caramelization, burning, something like that. But so what we're looking for this one is so now that we've added that cream mixture and we've got everything cooking, we need to bring this up to a boil. We're gonna thicken it up just slightly with some cornstarch, okay? Since we did cut down on some of that cream, instead of just reducing this all the way down like sometimes we do with soup, we're gonna thicken it slightly and stuff so that way we've got that kind of texture and consistency we want. And so for the sake of letting this cook down, this is gonna take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. And so I've been cooking a little bit ahead of that. And so right here is basically what that looks like.
Oh,
and
great.
so I've taken that mixture and I've thickened it slightly with some cornstarch.
Nice.
And so you can see that it's heartier. Now, the other step that I did is, you know, from a chef standpoint, I want to have all kinds of textures and flavors. That's fine as is. But what I did is I took about half of it out and I put it in a blender. And so, and I blended that all up. Why? It takes all of those flavors of the hominy and the onions and all that stuff that we had going, and it just spreads them all out into it. And then you still have all that texture from the chunk. So that's what you get to do is you get to have some of that thinness in the puree and then the chunkiness from all those vegetables.
That's
So-
a trick to get
I've
that.
never thought about it.
No, I've always wondered how those soups at restaurants
Yeah.
get so much thicker. That's it.
So, I mean, it is. So this is exactly what we're really looking for here, you know?
Beautiful.
And we're looking at an hour's time. You know, it took us 10, 15 minutes to prep while we're just kind of enjoying ourselves. You know, and then the hour cook time is kind of important. It can get done in 30 minutes, but if you let it go for an hour, that's when things really get to kind of hang out, marry, kind of bloom in flavor.
What about seasonings? Do you have like salt, pepper, all that? Are you
Sure.
going with your gut on that, or do you have kind of a good ratio?
Yeah, so it's hard to tell people, you know, even cooks like that I work with every day, like, you know, my salt level is different than theirs. So they're like, what, more salt, chef? But the reality is like, if something says to taste, like even my recipes might say to taste, it truly means that to your own preference, because my salt level might be higher than yours. But so like, for instance, this, I didn't say anything about seasoning, but I talked about development of flavors. So really, I want a lot of those flavors to come through. And then when we season, like how much do you season? So salt is really the seasoning. Pepper is, you know, something to add to it, but it's not going to enhance the flavor. You're going to add a new flavor with pepper. With salt, you know, how much is there? The biggest advice again is just add a little, let it kind of go for a minute or two, and then taste it. You know, but for this type of recipe, you know, you're going to add in a couple pinches of salt. Pepper-wise, that's really kind of dependent. I'm a pepper fan, but also we're just going to keep that in check. And then, you know, when you guys, you know, actually sit down and eat it, you want more pepper, then that's what you'll do. But seasoning-wise is so important. Like all those great flavors will not be at the max level until they've been properly enhanced with salt. And so that's really like even right here now. That's something this morning. It didn't require a whole lot of salt, to be honest. Why didn't is because the hominy is canned. It's not something you're going to find fresh.
Okay.
And so you won't know those things all the time unless you work with it. But just kind of thinking about it, it's just like if you use canned items, just always keep in mind that their salt level is probably a little bit higher, and you might be able to kick back on a little bit. So
Nice.
yeah. So let's keep having fun and chatting, but let's also finish up these shooters so we can keep rolling on our dinner. So I've got another oil back here. I'm going to use the bacon again to kind of keep that running through the flavors. But this bacon oil I've got heating, and we're going to turn that up just a little bit. And so what we've done is for a texture, you have soup, you're gonna have crackers, you're gonna have some bread, you're gonna do something like that. What I wanna do is kind of reinforce that flavor of that hominy and corn. These are corn tortillas, it has that hominy flavor. And what we're looking for there is some crunch. So with that bacon oil, we're gonna take and then drop these shreds of the corn tortilla right in there. And you might be able to hear it just slightly right now. So it's, what is the temperature of this oil? It's not a deep fryer. I haven't necessarily put a thermometer in it.
Okay.
But, what we're looking for is shimmering. If you know what shimmering looks like, think about medium-high heat. Think about when it's just kind of got that glossy appearance. You can start to tell. But we're going to let those go for about 30 seconds, crisp up. And then we're going to season them when they come out. And this is actually a seasoning you'll find at the Mexican grocery store. You'll find it at Walmart now too. It's pretty popular. Sazon. Right? It's not French, but it sounds fun to say like that. But Sazon's really good, and there's only like a few ingredients in it, but it does like have one of those flavors that it's hard to get, like even trying to mix it up yourself. So Sazon Goya is a really cool kind of secret weapon of mine. And something I love to do at home, just because it's got so much. But now that those are done, we're going to season them up, and then, like I said, this is what they look like. So I fried these up just a little bit ago. They've allowed to kind of set on some paper towels, kind of drain some of that grease, and they're just light and beautiful.
Nice.
So we're going to let the soup hang out, let the straws kind of sit there, and then what I'd like to do, as we sip on our wine, is kind of get rolling into our next course, and then we'll come back and kind of plate them all up at the end, if that sounds good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Looks amazing already.
Well, thank you. Yeah, these are like kind of all, so we could just do it to where right now I serve you guys some of this soup and we talk about it. But with this being said, it's more fun if we're all involved, and then you're not focused on eating while we're then cooking. And then these are all small bites too with the pinchos. So what's kind of nice about it is to get it all done, so that way we're all kind of sitting down and eating together. So that's kind of the flow what we'll go with. So, trying to move along, what we have here is a piece of pork. Anybody have any idea what cut that might be?
It's a loin.
It is, and it's actually a tenderloin.
It's almost like we're from the Midwest or something. We know what we mean.
I know. Like that's a little unfair. I feel like next you're going to quiz us on irrigation.
That was one of the hard hitters right there, guys. You did really good though. Because sometimes it's hard to tell. Because pork can sometimes, through its diet, have a little bit darker color. But the reality is pork is a great item. It's from Iowa. It's the other white meat. And it's just something that you can have a lot of flavor in it. The loin is super tender, and so that's what we're going to do today. Is we're going to use the loin to create like a little mini fritter. And so if you come to Iowa, if you go, what is Iowa known for? It's known for those fritters, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do today, but we're going to put it on a waffle bun, and we're going to serve it with a Honey Crisp apple slaw. So Honey Crisp are also grown in the area here in Iowa and Minnesota and the region. So and right now they're honestly fantastic. I got it from a local supplier, and just eating a couple of them is the perfect. They're in season, so very exciting to be able to use stuff when it's in season and whatnot. So
I have a question. Do you have any fun alternatives for someone who's like pescatarian or vegetarian that might be watching?
Sure.
And don't want to necessarily be meat?
yeah, I think that's great because it's coming up a lot more.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. It's not just a thing where it's just like, oh, hey, can you kind of, just do whatever and then come up with something. It's like, that doesn't work. So, right now, especially in summer, I would go to produce. Like even out in my side yard right now, there's oyster mushrooms,
Oh yeah.
which are beautiful.
I just ate some wild caught yellow oyster mushrooms the other day and they're fire.
Sure.
Wow, so good.
They're great, right?
Yeah, they were.
There's nothing better. I mean, morel season is out of the way right now, but even if it was portobellos or something else, like, those are all good. And so what would I do with them? I would kind of treat them the same way, You can keep them lighter and do some marinating and then grilling those mushrooms and then putting those into the sandwich. Or you can treat it kind of the same approach where we're going to go ahead and then kind of bread it like a little fritter and then just use it as kind of the same way, just, obviously with a different product. But really, so what do we got to get going first? So we got 3 components to that sando or sandwich. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to get the slaw going. And so with the slaw, we've got a couple of different items to work with here. And like I said, the first one here is the apple slaw. So what we want to do is we want to peel. You know, if you're gonna eat it out of hand, we don't peel an apple. But the reality is a lot of time when we're cooking, you know, that we don't really want to be lazy about it, that we want to go ahead and then take those off. There is the nutrients in the skin.
About it.
I was gonna say, I was like, I am always lazy about it.
This might explain why my slaw is not fantastic.
You know what, but hey, if you like, whatever you guys like, that's totally fine, but it just like, especially even though these apples, like I said, were so awesome, it just gives it a little bit, a little cleaner finish.
Yeah.
Do you have an apple preference? Because there's like a bazillion apples
Sure.
these days.
This one I selected, like I said, because they were just so in season. This one's a Honey Crisp.
I think this one.
Yeah, everybody goes for Honey Crisp right now, and for good reason.
Love them.
They're great, but to be honest, like, you know, there's some other great apples out there too. Out of Minnesota, there's a couple of varietals that you can find. But honestly, Gala or Pink Lady are great substitutes. Fuji's would be another great substitute as well. Granny Smith, if you kind of like more of that tart, especially if it's warmer out, those would work fine too. So as you can see, there's a lot of play to go along with it. But with the apples, basically, as you see, I just kind of, you know, I peeled it and then I cut them into little plank-sized pieces. Because what we're going to do is we're going to shred, kind of just like a slaw. And, you know, if you do it slightly different at home, no big deal. But all we're going to do is just run a knife through a little bit.
That is exactly what it looks like with my knife
Yeah,
skills.
me too. Yeah.
Just the same.
But, you know, hey, so if you're going home, you could go, you know, slow.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a lot fun if you know, get something like this going, you hear this at work. It's doing pretty fast.
Literally, I don't have no fingers left.
Just remember to tuck the nut.
Yes.
I would
That's
have
the
the
secret.
chef.
Dan, did you do that? Just tuck the nut.
I knew
Not
you were
that
going to
one.
repeat that.
Can I ask a question? Is a pincho the same thing as a tapa, but just from a different region, or is it from a different time of day, or what is the difference between a pincho and a tapa?
You know what? I could probably go to that and be wrong. You know, the pinchos is just something that I understand.
I know this one.
Good. So
Yeah, or like if you don't feel,
please go ahead.
Tapas is typically going to be your Spanish tapas.
Yes.
And the pincho is something that is more universal and specifically European.
Oh, did not know that.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. You educated me today.
A lesson learned.
It's like you worked in restaurants or something.
You know, a couple of times. And honestly, it's because I told a table incorrectly once and they corrected me, which is actually pretty nice most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had said we were doing something as tapas and they said, no, you're not, that's not a Spanish dish.
Oh.
Yeah. So, get to learn stuff from all over the place. I also once tried to learn better knife skills because I was joking, I do not look like that. And I asked the chef who was standing there with me what I could be doing different. And he said, well, you could definitely stand further back and be more frightened.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen slaw done except for like on a slaw slicer.
Yes.
You know, those barbecue guys that do a lot of it, I think that's really, you know, you do volume. I love using a knife, so I try to do it all the time, but it is,
amazing.
it's difficult sometimes to do that much in volume.
I typically do it in my KitchenAid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's such a cheat, but it's so fast and you can just kind of roll through everything
Yeah.
because my knife skills are not quite like that.
So as we're finishing up the carrots here, we're just gonna add the last few components.
Beautiful.
And then with the dressing, usually, you know, with the slaw, is it gonna be mayonnaise based or is it gonna be kind of like more or less vinegar based? Is it gonna be kind of white or is it gonna be more kind of vinegar? So with this, it's kind of both. You know, we didn't wanna make it too heavy, but we did wanna include some flavors in there that would work well with the pork. So this one is gonna have some vinegar, some cider vinegar in it, which is gonna give it that lift, that acid, that pop. But it does have a little bit of mayonnaise in it. It's seasoned well with salt and pepper. But really, it's just we want to let those ingredients really speak for themselves. So we don't want to overdo anything with that dressing to take away from the apples and all the other things in this slaw. So we're just going to kind of finish with some these carrots here, and then the big thing is the reason why we want to do this first is we want to get the slaw put together, and then we want to let it sit for a little bit. We want to at least have 20 minutes, so that way it lets it have a chance to kind of just hang out, kind of marry, and let all the flavors kind of come together. So that's really kind of one of the biggest things right now for this dish. You know, how long can it sit though? You know, is it going to be bad if it sits overnight? No, it's not at all. Actually, this is something too where if you're entertaining and you need to have it ready for the next day, you can actually do this a day ahead.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. That's good advice.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. Sometimes it's we're entertaining because it's less fun the more stuff that we have to do. So if we can get ahead of some things, then that's even better. So, but we'll just run through these. So the cuts that we're doing on most of the stuff, we're just trying to shred it. So with the carrots, all I did was slice them on a bias or like a corner cut. So that way I can kind of get these planks, and then I'm just going to kind of line them up. And then I can just kind of, not a lazy way, but just like I don't have to try to be so precise or anything like that. But it still gives me like a really nice kind of a shaved, clean cut.
I was actually thinking that you were looking really lazy right now with that. I'm glad you clarified.
You could tighten that up.
Yes. But what's the reality though? Like at home, you know,
Yeah.
you can easily do a box grater with this. You know, this is going to give you, like with a knife cuts, it's going to give you a little bit nicer kind of a look, in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with using your cheese grater, the grating side of it. It makes kind of the same thing. So
Nice.
we've got those ingredients in there. And so that slaw dressing, like I said, what we've got in here is we've got mayo, we've got some cider vinegar, honey, also some Dijon mustard. That's going to kind of bring things together. You're like, oh, I like mustard. It's not even enough to really tell at all. Instead, it's just kind of allows all the players that are inside of here to sing the best that they can.
Nice.
Kind of like the orchestrator of it all. There's also some lemon and some celery seed in here too. So what we want to do is we want to be able to take, like I said, this dressing.
Is there a specific kind of mustard? Because I mean, there's a million mustards
Sure.
out there that you prefer.
So this one here is a Dijon. This is where you can have fun. You know, it's just kind of like when we were talking and stuff, like when we're organizing, you know, our event today, our meal, it's like, well, what oils, what spices, there's so much variety. So, hey, I am a mustard fan. And so if you wanted to do something different and I knew I could serve something a little bit extravagant, I would do whole grain mustard. You know, and I might mix it with some of the Dijon too, but honestly, if you're just a yellow mustard kind of gal or guy, that's fine too. But so just to show you guys a little bit here, so those items are mixed together.
Beautiful.
It is, it's not heavy, but it does have some body too by that little bit of mayo in it and creamed out. So at this point in time here, the last part of this is just making sure though that we also give it some seasoning. Okay, so we don't want to over season it, but we do want to make sure that we enhance all those great flavors that are in there. So a little salt, a little pepper, guys. And then we're just going to give this one little mix up in here. Just let that might hang out. So cool. So we got that slaw going. I promise you guys I'll give you a little spoonful here in a little bit once it gets married up together. Okay, so we have got the slaw going. Now we need to really look at doing the pork. What we have with the pork here is we've got a local pork tenderloin. Whenever you can support local, you know, it's a huge thing. You hear chefs say it all the time, but just people in general, especially during the pandemic and things, like it's never more important a time than to try to do so.
Do you have anyone local that you're a big fan of that you look for a lot, or?
Sure. So there's a lot of local people, and I haven't used them. I haven't been able to work with them all over the past year.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried. It's just been more difficult, even at work and things like that, to go to local. But on a personal level, I have. So there's a lot of farmers, like with Eversalt beef, with even at the farmers market, just trying to do whatever I can while it's open. But like Ray Family Farms, who does like microgreens and things like that. Somebody that I worked with and really wanted to try to help connect other chefs. But it really has taken a backseat the past year. So on a personal level, it's kind of picked up, while on a professional level, we kind of all had to focus on kind of a different avenue, like we use more plastics and things like that to keep things safe. But whenever I can, you know, we use local vendors. So like, and when is that the most important? Is we try to save up some of our monies or something we can in the winter, so that way during the spring and summer that we can go to the farmers market, or we can bring in fresh corn from, you know, whether it be Marshalltown or whether, you know, it's, you know, there's so many great places where people say we have the best sweet corn from, or whatever it might be. So the answer to that is we use just as much as we possibly can. And everybody's trying to get some of the business too, because there's a big difference in, like this pork tenderloin here, you can even see it when you're cutting into it. I mean, it just looks a lot better than some of the stuff that you just find at your own grocery store.
Yeah, the color's so much more rich, yeah.
May I ask a question? You're trimming off the fat. I mean, is that kind of the best technique and minimize the amount of fat on the piece of meat that you're going to cook up, or what do you recommend?
Sure, I think that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. You know, because you get a piece of meat, it's like, what do you do with it? It's expensive already, right? Meat's expensive. I don't think it's expensive anymore. But yeah, really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to remove some of that exterior fat. And the reason why we're doing that here is like, say we were going to just cook this on the grill or something. We could leave a little extra on there, but if we don't want to eat it later on, I don't necessarily want it on in the beginning. But the reason why we want to really take a lot of that off is because we're going to cut this down. And we don't want any of those connected pieces kind of like getting in the way of when we go to bite it.
Right.
So yeah, so the answer is try to remove as much visible fat, and also it's the stuff called silver skin. And the silver skin happens on pork. You guys have ever trimmed pork up? Mm-hmm. It's got like this this connective tissue on it. Looks kind of like fat, but it's stuff that's really hard to cut through sometimes. It doesn't want to break down through cooking, so you got to get rid of it. And we've been able to do that, but without over trimming it. So you can see there's still a little bit of fat on the insides. We're not going to try to just annihilate this thing, but we'll go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into little medallions or just little slices, because what we're going to do then is we're going to give those a light pound, and these are going to become our fritters. So just take your time. I mean, when you're slicing meat too, word of advice is let the knife do the work. You shouldn't be forcing anything. Really it should just be a draw forward and maybe a draw backwards. But at this point, you can see here now we've got these beautiful medallions. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give these just a light push. And so, you can even do it with your hand. So it's kind of funny is when you have very tender, or you have something that's been taken care of, right? When you get really good pork out of Iowa, you don't have to work as hard to do things.
I'm entirely expecting you to get
Yeah,
a rolling pin or a mallet,
It looks like honey.
yeah, watching how easy that is.
But it's not mushy though, so that's the thing. Like this, the meat is tender, but it's not like that's just been pumped full of like water or anything else like some of the major players do nowadays. But like a super tender product. So as a chef, like that's kind of the key. Is it's like starting with something great. If you start with something quality, you're certainly going to end with something quality. So what we're going to do is then just go ahead and then transfer these. And we can pound these out, really super thin. But like I said, you can see how tender they are. We want to pound them out a bit, but we don't have to go too far for that. So now that these are portioned out, what we want to do is we want to get into breading these, right? So like, guys, when we think of breading, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that it's bread? Well, it can mean a lot of different things. The difference between breading and battering is battering usually is wet, where breading is like a dry form. And so that's really what we're going to be doing today, is taking these pork, and what we're going to do is season them first. So this is the one tip that'll make a big difference, is before these ever go into any breading, is you got to hit them with a little seasoning first. If not, you're kind of you're dressing it up with things that don't give it much flavor. So this is the one thing is when we're working in any of the kitchens is make sure that we season our food.
And you do it that way rather than mixing it with the breading, just so you get.
We're going to do both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's going to make a big difference. Is there a tendency to, if you could oversalt it if you're not paying attention to what you're doing? Well, sure. But we just want to just do some on the meat, and then each one of the breading will have a little bit of salt in it too. So now that those are good, we're just going to set those off to the side. That's a good chance to get another cheers going, huh guys?
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. And I will, in a minute, go and get our bread one that we'll pair with the fritter as well.
This is actually really great because I think I pretty much do all the seasoning wrong. Which is probably why my food's not that great.
Oh, I don't know about
This is amazing. No, this is great.
Well, I'm going to speak behind you for a second here. I'm going to hop in the fridge.
So how do you feel about blends? So for instance, allspice, which is like one of my favorite places, like my whole cabinet is allspice. they have a lot of different blends. How do you feel about that versus just doing the traditional salt and pepper, especially, you know, if they have things geared towards certain products like pork, you know,
Sure.
beef,
Yeah.
fish. I don't know if you as a chef have thoughts around that, because I feel like a lot of chefs are just straight salt, pepper, and then
Yeah, so this is what I would say to that. Like, you know, I used to be like, I don't know, like, it has to be this way, right? Or you
Yeah.
grow up under a certain somebody and they teach you a certain way, and it's like, no, you want to just like, you know, it should be salt and pepper, and you don't rely on blends. Over time, I figured out that, you know what, that's whatever works best for you. Well, somebody local that does spices and gets great ones, there's nothing wrong with it. And I found out that we can make great spice blends and stuff, but why do it yourself sometimes if you have professionals that
Yeah.
can do it? So, no, with spice blends and rubs and other things, there's certain ones that we do. I got my own signature kind of rubs that I like to use, but no, I would always lean on it. So, salt and pepper is never going to go out of the mix. It'll always be there. But when it comes to any of those spice blends, I would say that from anybody's standpoint, to not shy away from them. That if you're avoiding those and just saying salt and pepper is it, then you're really missing the mark, because there's too much good things out there to use. You know, I love going to a spice store. It's one of my favorite ones. You know, and then they're actually finding more and more spices, or what's old is new again.
Yes, and I love that they'll teach you stuff.
They
Like,
will.
every time I walk in, there's always somebody there telling me, hey, Sarah, you've got to come over and try the honey ancho blend, and you've got to come over and try our new pizza blend, or this or that. And you're always getting a little bit of different flavors, and it helps me kind of expand what I'm doing, which I like. As long as we're getting stuff ready here.
Yeah.
So, stay with me here.
I'm very curious.
I had to try canned wine. It's a huge thing right now, the canned wine.
It is.
It's, yeah, very, very on trend. I was not sure about it until I heard about the Underwood. So I wanted to do a Pinot. Pinot Noirs are just nice, typically speaking. They're gonna be nice, they're gonna be a little bit lighter on your palate, they're gonna be very drinkable, easy. I tend to enjoy Pinots from the like northwestern regions, so this is from Oregon. I also always tell people, don't get too hung up on grapes. Like, there are some very good generalizations, like Pinots tend to be a little bit lighter. There are also some Pinots out there that will knock you down with how big they can get. So I really like to pay attention to regions, and I like to pay attention to whether or not something has been spending time on oak, whether or not it's been doing this, whether or not it's in a can. I was pretty excited about this. So literally went with this specifically because I was going to be going against that Slaw with the apple cider vinegar and pork. You can hardly ever go wrong by serving Pinot with pork. It's just a good mix.
Sarah, this is my first canned wine.
oh,
I mean, I've boxed wine.
You are going to be
I've had.
you are a dainty lady.
shockingly surprised. And it comes in at $5.99 a can, and a can is roughly half a bottle. So you're going to be doing a couple of them. Yeah.
So if you drink 2 of those cans, you're gonna be in trouble.
If you drink 2 of these cans, you'll drink a bottle of wine, and
Wow.
just keep that in your mind. Oh,
I have to say I'm excited because I thought you were about to give us Coors Light. I just saw a silver bullet.
I got
thank you.
super curious.
Right?
I'm gonna smell it and I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, give it a minute. Anytime I do a red, literally at any price point, I let it open up just a little bit.
Yeah.
I clearly at $5.99, I'm not getting out a decanter for a canned wine or anything like that. But I'm not
I am
gonna-
so disappointed.
I know, I'm not gonna run it through an aerator or anything, but I am gonna just let it sit here and kind of open up a little bit and get a little bit bigger. But we're gonna get some nice berry tones off of there, and we're gonna get some stuff that's gonna offset the spiciness and the kind of acidity that we have going on with the slaw.
I was kind of anticipating you're gonna have like this soda can molded decanter that you're gonna swirl it
Get a nice
around.
little cheese glove, yeah, do the whole thing.
So Sarah, since you're taking the wine part of it,
Yeah.
I want to share with people why we swizzle.
Oh, so
Some people don't know that.
you're just letting it get some oxygen. It's gonna give it a more bold flavor. It's gonna let it kind of really get in there, and it's gonna permeate your palate more after you give it a little bit of that swizzle.
I love permeating my palate.
Oh.
But
And also, I guess as long as we're talking about technique, You drink wine with your nose. That sounds really pretentious and ridiculous, but it's super true. Like you want to make sure that you're really breathing it in, that you're really smelling it, and like when you taste, you almost want to kind of like slurp your wine at first and get some oxygen in there. It will literally change the flavor. Solely using a variety of wine glasses, but I won't do that. I have universal wine glasses because I like to drink and I don't want to have to switch that much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Guys.
Cheers. Cheers. From a can.
It's not that bad.
Right?
I love the Coors Light of wine.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got a little bit of smokiness. You can
It
taste the
does.
oak off of it, which is really surprising out of a can of wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not super heavy.
Yeah. And a lot more complex than you expected it to be.
Yeah. That kind of surprises me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This breathes more. I mean, you can smell the smoke a lot more now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And it's just gonna get
And
more
where can you get
complex.
this?
Trader Joe's.
So this
All the
all
wines we have are gonna go to Trader Joe's. I really
Amazing.
wanted, if I'm gonna have a dinner party and I'm gonna have a variety of wines kind of going with different things, I don't really wanna spend, I mean, I've got it cheap, but like I don't wanna spend $25, $30 a bottle
For every cherry.
for every pairing, and then you need multiple bottles for every course. And,
Yeah.
I wanna keep it as low price point as I can, and Trader Joe's really has a lot of stuff that you can knock out of the park.
Yeah.
All right, wine's delicious. Thank you. Yes, that's wonderful. That's going to pair really nicely. So, guys, we've got the pork that's been seasoned, the fritters before we go through the breading process. But so as you can see here, we got flour. It's seasoned. We also, without over seasoning, we gave light on the egg, and then the same with the breadcrumb. This is Panko Breadcrumb. Could you use the Italian if that's what you have in house? Could you use cracker? Use whatever you want. Panko is something that you'll find with Japanese. Especially when you're talking about like light and crispy, tonkatsu, stuff like that. Panko is just a really kind of a nicer cut. So it's going to go great with this today. So whenever you see a fritter out and stuff like that, I think you'll notice some of the better ones do have like a two-step type of a process with the breadcrumbs. There's some smaller crumb in there, some larger crumb. So you just got some more going on with it than just if it was just an Italian style. So what we're going to do, guys, pretty simple, is we're going to go through a breading process. We do this a lot at work, and I can tell you that people can do it wrong, but there's right and wrong ways to bread. Like, even if you're trying to work clean, it's like keep one of your hands wet and one of your hands dry. So as I grab the pork with my right hand, that hand's wet. So what I'm going to do is actually use the other hand for the dry, so I'm just going to scoop the flour over it, so I coat each one of those little fritters, right? And so then the next thing that it's going to do is it's going to go into the egg.
For a very long time, I did it on purpose. I would egg wash first because I didn't know better. So I would do the egg and then the flour, and then I could never figure out why my breading wasn't really staying on very well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I learned that today. I was today years old.
Never too late to learn. But I mean, it's right though. I mean, if you follow this is a standard breading procedure.
Yeah.
If you do flour, eggs, and then breadcrumbs, it's always going to be like that, and it generally always turns out pretty good. So we're just going to follow that again, and just finish these last ones up here: flour and eggs, and then the breadcrumb. And
Does it work great with like Cosmo flour and almond flour as well versus traditional if you're gluten free?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, you can add some other things in there like nutritional yeast to kind of boost up some of maybe the flavor that would impart with the wheat flour. Honestly,
I love nutritional yeast. It sounds so ridiculous. Like when somebody first suggested eating it, I thought it was so strange. Oh my god, I'll put it on popcorn now.
Really?
Yeah, it's so good.
I learned that today as well.
It comes off
Pen and paper.
cheesy. I mean, almost
Does.
like a little cheese flavor. And just has a lot of umami. Like it just, yeah, it hits a lot of different spots on your palate. I like it.
Dan's gonna be a sous chef by the time this is done.
You got it. I know what I'm doing when I get home tonight.
So we've got the oil preheating right now, and so that's another thing is we wanted to do some different oils, and so this one here that we have is an avocado oil. So it's avocado oil. It does not have a ton of flavor. You know, you're not gonna put avocado. You really aren't. But the thing is, it's going to allow you to have that right cook point. If you add some, like if you're trying to fry stuff and you have an extra virgin olive oil or something like that, it's gonna smoke and it's not gonna turn out good. So the avocado oil is something that it has a high smoke point. It's not gonna impart too much flavor, but it's gonna turn these to like GBD. What's GBD? I'm gonna teach you something you guys don't know.
DVD.
Yeah, so like in the kitchen.
Good. Shoot, I have no idea.
It's golden brown delicious.
Oh,
delicious.
And I didn't make it up. Actually, it's probably something that some really cool hippie line cooks did back in the 80s and stuff. But
I agree.
it's cool, you know, and that's what we strive for is just to really hit that golden brown delicious. So with this, we're gonna finish up these last couple here. And guys, guess what? As we're sitting there talking, I realized I put the wrong hand in the wet and dry. I just played it off, no big deal, you know? But that's what happens. Sometimes you sit there and you're trying to have fun, you have an extra sip of wine or something, and you end up putting it in the wrong bowl or something, you have to double bread it. No big deal. You just roll it.
I did not notice. You're with the right crew to not pick that up.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to keep any secrets from friends.
So my new GBD is good bowl dish.
Good bowl dish.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
What's that? It's my GBD. It's a good bowl dish.
What are some other oils that have higher smoke points if you don't have avocado?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, canola and vegetable oil are just fine. And that's what most people are going to have on hand. You know, hey, say you're a household that has, Crisco. So, you know, those are high points. It's, the avocado, though, it's going to cost you more money, but it's actually, I think it's better for the environment. Flavor-wise, and there's a lot of things going on. So avocado is like the extra virgin olive oil of cooking because you really can't cook it much with the extra virgin.
It makes great salad dressings. I love using avocado oil in my salad dressings.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. I didn't really know about it until like probably the past year and a half or 2 years. So, guys, well, we got this heated up, and so we're talking about shimmering. This is probably just past shimmering right now, but it's good because we're going to load this pan up with some of these things. It's going to sizzle, pop a little bit, but it's going to drop the temperature of that pan down too as we add some of this meat in. So when we add the meat in, just lay down closest to you and then slowly release away. Don't release towards you because then the oil will splash on you.
Oh. I don't fry at home because I'm always scared of that. So
Sure.
that makes sense.
Even if you've got deeper oil, if you got, say, deeper oil where you can't just lay it down, wiggle it a little bit, it'll set some of that breading, and then you just kind of slide it in.
Move it away.
So it is, and it makes a big difference. That one wants to get splashed by hot oil.
Like everything else, you just gotta wiggle it just a little bit. Lay it down.
So these are going to take, this is, you know, medium high right here now on this. The temperature is going to drop just slightly, then it'll come back up as the temperature of the fire brings it up. But these are going to take a couple minutes on that first side. We're looking for golden brown delicious for sure. And then we're going to flip it over and then we're going to do it the same. You know, at home, you got meat thermometers. What happens if you don't have one? Well, guess what? I'll teach you a way to sneak a look. You know, like how do you know it's done? You want to make sure that it's cooked for your guests. You can serve pork a little under than what it used to be back in the day.
Yes.
You really can. And I try to do that, but you just got to be very careful. You might try to eat undercooked pork. That's how it is, Tim. It's just like with chicken. It's either done or it's not. So it is important that we make sure that we hit the mark on that. And so this first side here already, hopefully you guys are starting to get some of those smells going now. It's really getting nice and caramelized. The difference here that we're doing today, besides like, if you go anywhere here in like the metro or something and someone's got that for their specialty, a lot of the time it's going to be deep fried, right? So this one here isn't it's not a deep fry. This one here is a shallow fry. So it doesn't cook both sides at the same time, but it actually, I think it benefits it. So instead of the whole thing kind of, whenever you fry something, where you put something to too extreme heat, kind of tightens up. You know, anybody that gets kind of the pressure put on them, kind of firm up a bit, right? Well, if you do it this way, where it's not deep fried or shallow frying, it allows things to tighten up on the one side, but the other side is just kind of still sitting there. So if you follow my drift, this is a good way to keep the product more tender. And that's what we've done since the beginning. We got a great product. It was tender. We tenderized it with our hand, with our palm. And then we're obviously the cooking that we're doing here too is going to allow it to be as tender as it can. So
A question that I would have when I'm cooking like this, how much oil should you really put in the pan? I mean, it's a shallow fry, but I mean, is it just kind of so the whole bottom is glistening, or a little bit more?
sure. So rule of thumb, you know, just that way you can't forget it. Let it go halfway up. It should go halfway up your product.
Oh, okay.
That's shallow frying for you.
Okay.
You know, and if you don't have enough oil, you can go less, but you want to have at least halfway up because that's going to make it the frying. Because if not, if it doesn't have enough oil in it, then it's going to almost like the brown and saute it, but you're not quite achieving that same level of fry.
Okay.
But you know, yeah, I mean, can you do too much? I wouldn't put any more in than that. Like you guys can see here, that's definitely going halfway up.
Yeah.
You know, more than plenty.
Okay.
Can this oil be used again? It sure can. Let it cool down slightly. Put a strainer, pour it through that strainer into another pan. There's no reason to throw away the oil.
Or if you're my mother, you just have a coffee can on
Who didn't throw
the
that?
stove. Yeah.
Sure.
You drain every bit of grease from everything
Baking
you make.
grease.
Yep,
Yep.
right in there.
Ian just needs to know because he's always a little bit extra.
Okay, well this is looking good. So we've made the slaw. The slaw's hanging out right now, right guys? And so we've got the pork going too. We need to make the waffles. We need to make the waffles for the sandwich. So I'm gonna have to try some more of this delicious canned wine.
Yes, right? You're getting more and more of that smoke up the nose.
That's opened up very nicely.
Definitely has.
Yeah, it's subtle but smooth and light. I mean, it's good.
I would drink it again.
Oh my gosh, it's so smoky.
Yeah.
I know.
I love that. That's gonna go so well.
But it's also like mezcal. It's not like hit you.
Yeah,
You know, it's not pungent.
yeah.
It's there, but it's not overtaking.
So I'm gonna be interested. My mom gave me a waffle iron that was my grandma's. So literally this waffle iron is like 80 years old. It must, or maybe even older. It's so old.
Oh my
But I love it.
god.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of. I had to practice these waffles because I get nervous that they're gonna burn and get stuck in there. But actually, if you open it too soon, that's when they get stuck in there.
Yes.
Uh-oh, someone might be foretelling the future.
Oh no!
No, it's cool. So it's good though, like, you know, entertaining or having fun, and anytime that, you know, that we're around friends and stuff, you get tied up, things can happen, you know, you pull the waffle too early or too late. The cool thing is like right now, we're getting ready to move on to the waffle here in a second. So, like the waffle batter, you know, the super easy. You can buy waffle mix and use that. This here, it's pretty much a straightforward waffle batter. But I just mixed it up as we were kind of talking. I took the dry ingredients and I scaled all those or measured them. And I have those, I put those in a bowl. And then I took all the wet, the milk and the eggs and things and oil. And then I put those together and then I mix them both together in a bowl here now. And then I allow it to slake. Big word, what's slake? I learned it actually when I was doing tiling for a summer. I did tiling for a summer, I was just a gopher. But slaking is where like they take and they mix something that's dry and wet, and it's for like, slaking is when that dry ingredient absorbs the wet. So you got like reactions occur. So this is allowing that waffle batter to get happy. And there's still some lumps. Is that a good thing? Waffle batter, pancake batter, it is. You know, you want to have that, and you want to see some of those air, you know, those holes in there. That's what's going to give it lift. But the reality is like, hey, sometimes the first pancake, the first waffle, the first anything is usually the one that doesn't come out right.
Right.
So we're going to get one going here in just a second, and then hopefully it turns out
Get the
good.
weird out of the way.
But we're going to already call it the first one's not good, so that way if it doesn't come out right, we're cool.
Or in my case, the first 100 aren't that good. But can I make them good now?
Well, here's something else too. Say you got your waffle iron at home. You know, you can put butter on it, you know, or whatever, butter adds some flavor.
Yeah.
The butter can burn. You got hand spray, that's cool. What happens if you forgot to go to the store or you forgot to bring some hand spray to the party? Well, there's hacks, chef hacks. You know, get a little oil, get a little bit of paper towel, and then just use that to brush. You know, we use it, like if you have a pastry brush, sometimes those pastry brushes fall apart. And you gotta have a backup plan.
Yeah.
There you go. So, not anything revolutionary, but it allows us to be able to do that without wasting a ton of oil. Because if you took and tried to just drizzle that, the oil would just sit at the bottom. So guys, while we get that going, I'm gonna turn this down just to very low as that finishes off. The waffle iron is turned on, it's hot, so it's gonna make a beep noise, which it has a couple times. And now that the batter is ready and we've got it oiled up, we're gonna go ahead and then get this waffle batter inside. So the other thing too is there's standard amounts that you pour in, but it's not fun that way. We want to put it in there and hopefully it's the right amount, but if it's too much, it'll pour over. And if it's not enough, then it won't be enough. But it looks like that's about the right amount there. So we're just gonna go ahead and close that. And then at this point, this one here, we'll turn it over. The ones at home, generally you just pour, close the top, let it do its thing. But as you had already said, you don't want to peek. You're not trying to get in there and take a peek and see if it's ready to rock and roll, because that'll tear it apart.
Yeah.
And then you got to start over.
Is it true that, I mean, like, you can kind of see the steam of smoke coming out of the sides when it's done steaming? Does that mean the waffle's done, or is that just kind of not true?
Well, I mean, I think that could be the case. I think it's more or less you get used to your waffle maker and then you kind of know. But the reality is sometimes it comes down to the best way to go about it is your time, temperature. So like on these, a lot of times, if I would have been smart, I would have hit like start. You know, it's already set for 340, like,
Got it.
you know, we've already set it and done this before. But instead, it makes it a little bit more fun when you forget. So that way, you're a little bit more on point. So we'll see how it turns out. In the meantime, though, it looks like, guys, this pork, I'm over here pushing on it, like that means something, right?
Yeah.
It actually does. We're gonna look for the doneness there.
Okay.
You're grabbing over there. What are you thinking?
I'm grabbing the heel of my thumb.
Yeah. So is that
Yeah.
the doneness indicator test?
That's gonna be about where you want your pork to be.
Out to dinner.
Feel about the same.
Show people you're cool. Be like, you know, so if your steak comes out, you just be like, is that medium rare? You start poking at somebody's steak. Yeah. So go ahead. You remember what it is?
Oh gosh, it's been a long time, isn't it? Rare, medium.
So there's slightly different ones,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's one where you just push your first finger on it, and then when you push into that fat meat on your finger,
Yeah.
that feel should be like a medium rare. And then, and then when you push 2 down, it's a little firmer, and then when you do a full squeeze, then you push on it, and you're like, oh, that's well done. And it
Or
goes
when
every
it's
cycle.
gray. When it's gray, that's well done. Yeah, then you're done with it.
So we can always do a test, you know, like you want to make sure things get done. So, you know, instead of just saying like, oh, let's throw a probe in it and stuff, no, let's like actually just do it in case we don't have a probe or we can't find it or anything else. So this one we're just gonna take and put it on paper towel. We want to let it drain a little bit of that oil. Okay. This is also another chance too. Just do a light bit of seasoning on the outside. Now that it's drained, hey, guess what? This is a little under. We're still in the pan cooking. There we go.
Oh, that looks perfect.
So what you guys can see there,
That's great.
Yeah.
it does. And this actually is fully cooked. You can see the steam coming off it. But the reality is people with pork and everything else, because it's breading, we're going to take it just a touch further. We are.
Okay.
You know, the reason being is because it's like we just want to make sure that, because pork used to be a thing where we had to fully cook it.
Right.
But some people might be like, you know what, I'm used to being just a touch less rosy. You know? But this right here, fully cooked, perfectly ready to eat.
Yeah,
That looks
beautiful. I'm always a little thing with my pork. I like
Yes.
it.
So what
Yeah.
I'm going to do here, we're going to let it continue to cook, but we're going to kill the heat. It's going to have carry over cooking. Okay. So while we come check out the waffle batter, we'll let those kind of finish off. But then what we're going to do then is the same thing. Pull these, let these drain on paper towels, give them a light bit of seasoning.
I grew up in a household that we were literally one bite away from trichinosis or botulism. So everything we ate was like a hockey puck.
Mine's the, yeah, I was gonna say mine's the opposite. Everything is cooked so much at my mom's house. She's like, I just have had food poisoning and I never want to have it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we always joke that like, oh, that burger's real close to an inch, within an inch of its life right there. We need to pull that off the grill.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've got about 30 seconds left. I'm definitely itching to try to take a peek at this waffle, but I'm not going to.
Don't do it.
No. But it's really, you know, what other indicators do we have? You know, especially while we're trying to have fun. I mean, the name of the game, even if I'm at home with my family, is to try to like make dinner less work. You know, make it more fun. You know, if the kids are running around or whatever. That's where like the timers help out a lot. But it's also use your nose. You know, use your eyes, use your senses. If something smells like it's burning, probably is. You know. So looking at this, we didn't peek, and it looks great.
It doesn't.
I have terrible ADD, so I set 1,000 timers in my phone while I'm cooking, just because I'll start chatting with people and yeah, that waffle would be on there another 5-10 minutes. All of a sudden smell it. Tell myself I have to run in there and grab it.
So always the first one too, sometimes wants to have a little problem getting out. The guys look at this waffle.
That looks great.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so we're gonna let that sit for a minute. You know, we can season it up, but there's nothing really to absorb. So seasoning it at this point is probably moot. But so let's go ahead, now that we know that this pork is looking pretty good, we're gonna go ahead and then drain it.
Now there are gadgets for everything in the kitchen now, right? Like
Sure.
just amazing amounts of gadgets. And my belief has always been if you can't use it for more than one thing, you shouldn't have it, except for like a waffle maker, because that's, special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only thing you can use to do that. But I've seen something recently, and it's like special fried food drainers, a bacon drainer, or a fritter drainer, or this or that. You don't need anything special to do.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, some of those gadgets and stuff are really nice, but the reality is, it's like, everyone's trying to make a buck now. Instead, like, find out what works for you and it can save you time. But really, the thing is, it's like, find out what makes cooking fun. That's really what it is. For me, it's having a good night, and it's about being around the good people and good food. So, but I'm not a chef that's or a person that's like good against anything. You know what? If it saves you time in the kitchen so you can spend more time at the table, then isn't that really what's key?
Nice.
So this waffle feels great. I mean, it's kind of perfect. Now that these have had a chance to sit here and drain, it goes with just a little pinch. Salt looks a little different too. So a lot of time everybody at home uses like iodized salt. Use it, it's fine. Or then if you actually are a foodie, kosher, use kosher. And it makes a difference because the flake is much different. So when you actually go to sprinkle, it's much different. You can't sprinkle iodized salt the same as you can kosher.
Yeah.
This is even different. This is, it's a nice sea salt. It's called Fleur de Sel. It's a French sea salt, hand harvested from a particular region over in France. And it tastes a little sweeter. It has saltiness to it, but it tastes sweeter than normal salt does. So, we're getting close here. What I want to do is I want to just go ahead and plate these up. We're going to dip into these here in the next couple of minutes, but I want to get a chance to show you guys what this looks like. So we're going to do some of these open-faced here.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
I know.
I'm so excited to eat.
So actually what we're going to do is cut these down just one more just so we can
Yeah.
a little more fun with it. But I mean, just as an example, like these things right here, I mean, hopefully they ring to you that, it's very reminiscent of the region, but it's also like fun, that you should be able to, like, even doing this stuff, like be able to hang out, and be able to do this and talk and cook. But this type of food here to me is exciting. It's nothing that's too fancy at all. Instead, it's just stuff that's, very Iowa, very Midwest. So now that we've got the waffle bun down, and now that we have got the pork cooked, this is how you can get a little fancier. One of the things that, as a chef, I love plating up food. It's one thing I can make the food, dress it up, make it look good. There's a lot of different ways that you could go about this. You could go the same way, you could make these all into a snake, but instead sometimes just staggering them and then putting the slaw on top. It's gonna look great. So we're gonna kind of do a finishing touches. Excuse me guys, it's just kind of footage. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little slaw and we're gonna put some on.
Oh my gosh.
That looks so
Right?
good to eat.
I'm salivating.
I know, me
do.
too.
It's terrible.
So, I mean, this is the sauce. This is what's gonna give it that lusciousness and juiciness. I mean, what else can go with this though? I mean, it's got all the apple and all those ingredients we put in there. But like to me, this is where like on my table at home, like I want to pull out the hot sauce, the sriracha sauce.
Oh, yes.
Any of those type of things are just gonna give it an extra, whatever you like. But, talking talking about local people, like Ray Family Farms. A lot of people are producing microgreens. We try to grow them in-house too sometimes. But they're full of nutrients and flavor. You know, so instead of just thinking like, oh, that's just what a chef is doing to hide something, you know, that's really is the case, but not here. They add a lot of visual aid to it, especially if you're taking pictures, but honestly, they do contribute to the flavor and to the nutrition of it. And so really, I mean, ready to rock and roll.
Wow.
The only other thing
Yeah.
that I'd like to, so if, I guess I don't see it right up front here now. Let's see here. Here it is. So, one of the ingredients that went into the slaw, we kind of didn't get into as much, was that vinegar. You know, talked about there was some cider vinegar in there. One of the secret weapons is this Vermont maple balsamic. And so, what you can do too is even though it's kind of really thin and stuff, this is where too at the end, for me, you know, I can take a spoon. So if it wasn't the sriracha, I mean, it's thicker. Like as far as the vinegar goes, and this is where you can just go right over top.
So you can just do that with a straight balsamic. You don't have to reduce it down and do a whole
Not good ones.
ruin my pan making
Not
a
good
balsamic
ones.
production.
Most balsamics that you're
fantastic.
going to go, if you go to some of the local like grocery stores that are around here and stuff, you're going to find out that some of those things have a lot of caramel colorants and other things added. A good balsamic you shouldn't necessarily need to reduce too much.
Nice.
But yeah, as you can see, that's thicker by natural reduction, and it's a wonderful product. But yeah, so this right here is the mini waffle sandos with the Iowa pork fritter, and then the honey crisp slaw.
Nice.
Yeah, and after putting it together, I can tell you that you know, it would go great with either one of these wines, though.
Yeah. I was hoping everything would be pretty versatile.
Yeah. So, we're on dessert now. I mean, we got food out in front of us. We were about ready to eat. So, with dessert, I talked about it's like one of my signature items. Let's talk about that. I'm gonna pop in the fridge real quick and pull some stuff out, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries.
I'm trying to sneak a peek.
I'm gonna do it one more time here.
Yeah.
In the freezer. So, Cheesecake Pops. You can, let me just put it this way. We're gonna make everything, but you wanna do something cool, you can buy a cheesecake now. You can go to the store and it's already a pre-done cheesecake batter. Like, I've even used that, so like people are like, well, I have a problem making the cheesecake, it doesn't turn out as good as yours. There's shortcuts. The chef that's like, hey, if that's not your skill set, that's fine. So, what we did is, in a bowl, we're gonna take the cream cheese and the sugar, and we're just going to make our cheesecake batter, okay? It's provided in the recipe, it's super, super easy. All you gotta do is follow the instructions on that. It's just a mix, and then it's just a pour and bake. So, with that being said, I'm gonna show you guys that. So this is what I did. This has been cooling. If we were to cook it and pour it now, it wouldn't be ready to make a cheesecake pop. So this is one of the items that is gonna require us to do it ahead of time, okay? So, and as far as entertaining, that's the name of the game. If you can do it the day before. So what do we have here? This is super exciting for me, guys. This is that blueberry and ube cheesecake. So like I said, made the batter, swirled into blueberry and ube, and then I panned it, and then I baked it. And so this is baked in a very low fan, in a 260 degree oven, and it's done until it's set. And it's popped into the cooler, and it's cooled overnight. Then the fun part begins. So instead of just serving a cheesecake bar, which would have been a smart move, like anytime, we want to make it fancy, right? You want to make it fun. Even if you go to Starbucks, they have cake pops, which aren't cheesecake, but they're fun. The kids like them. The adults like them. They're good with coffee. We're going to do the same thing though. What we're going to do is we're going to take and then cut these into squares and then roll them into balls. And so that's what I have here. Is I've taken the cheesecake after it cooled this morning. I was able to roll it into balls. And then I stuck some picks in it, right? And then I froze it. So this has been in the freezer now since this morning, and these are hard, okay? And so those, you know, they're all together. And then over here, I've been taking a little bit of white chocolate, which isn't actually a chocolate. People don't realize that. It doesn't have the same components to it. It's got cocoa butter and other things, but it's really not a true chocolate. But anyway, it goes fantastic with blueberries. Just really does. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a shell for these lollipops. So we're going to dip that actually inside here. And then, to make it even more fun, we're going to put some crunchies to go with it.
So how do you get it from where you baked it and you roll it into these balls though?
Sure.
What's the technique of that?
Sure, so it's a real easy, and I'll be happy to show it too. So for instance, we're going to cut this into squares. It's just got to be chilled. That's the most important thing, is your cheesecake is baked the day before. So then we're going to cut it into our portion-sized pieces. And so what we're going to do is we're going to roll that.
Oh,
Okay.
You just roll it into a ball, just like so. And that's going to go onto your parchment paper lined sheet pan. That's going to keep it from sticking is all.
Okay.
Once it's rolled into those balls, you know, you can look at the recipe because it is so important just to step by step it. But really, you roll it in balls, you walk away from it for a half an hour. It sits in the freezer. You come back, then you grab your little skewers, and then you just poke them through into each one of those balls. The important thing to remember is don't poke it all the way through. Poke it about halfway through, or a little bit beyond that. And so that's what those are. So roll them into balls, freeze them 30 minutes, come back, pick each one at the top of those balls, and then freeze it till it's hard. So it's more of a labor-intensive thing, but for entertaining, again, this is able to get done this morning, so that way, you know, once we're getting ready to eat food, this is kind of a no-brainer. So what we'll do is kind of move this off to the side, and this is where it can kind of be a little fun. So we have some raw sugar here, so it's not been processed. What we're going to do is, I'm going to throw it on this plate. And then we talked about ube. Ube is that purple potato. We're going to take some of these, it's dehydrated ube. So it's able to take some ube, and this right here has got, it's got a little sugar in it as well, but this is really just dehydrated ube sugar itself. And so what we're doing is we're just trying to put that together to infuse a little bit more flavor.
so did you make that yourself then? How do you go about making that?
That ube?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just that we have a dehydrator at my workplace, and so we're able to just take the potatoes and just dehydrate them. And then what you do is they're in a position ready just to get blitzed or to Roku, and then it can turn into a powder. And so that's what it is. And I'll take that powder, and then when you add sugar and salt to it, then you can actually get that flavor. If not, it just kind of tastes like a dust. But yeah, you could also buy this offline, and that's what I would recommend. We just had some in-house, and so that's why I utilized the rest of them to make it. But as you can see, this is what's we're going to dip the cheesecake pop into the chocolate, and then we're going to set it on there. So it's going to give a layer of texture and crunch, and it's also going to keep it from sticking flavor. So there's always like secrets to doing something, or hacks or whatever. With this, you just want to make sure that the chocolate rides up on the stick. Why is that important? It's because these things will eventually, like once they sit out and we're hanging out for a while, like they might fall off. You know, if they get soft enough, if you don't have the chocolate riding up the stick, the whole thing could just slide right off. Which happens. It's no big deal. It still eats just fine. But again, it's just one of those things where, you know, you want to make sure that that you do it so that way you don't have to worry about it falling off. So again, I just tilt it to the side, right up the stick, and then I'm just going to let the remainder kind of fall off. I mean, my kids do this. You know, they like to do it. It's fun. Theirs are a little messier, but that's okay. Generally more clean up. You know, but so with that being said, let me show you guys a couple techniques with this. I mean, this should truly be fun. This is where we all could have fun at this. If I had 4 bowls of chocolate, I could let us all have some fun. But you can set it right down there on it, or once it's kind of more or less drip free, what we can do is we can end up rolling it. And then you can almost look like a cherry or whatever, you know, that kind of appearance. The thing is though, like it's trying to understand the chocolate, like because it'll want to continue to fall if it's you want to basically roll it at just at the right time. So over time, we've learned, like when we do thousands of these, like there's ways that we can get faster and better at it. But like when we're just doing this at home and stuff, like it's just so fun, you know. And there's not a right or wrong way to do it. Ultimately, if it doesn't come out or they fall off the stick, it still tastes delicious. So I'll get a couple more of these going here, but really, I mean that's the process. And you know, these things, you guys probably can envision that it doesn't matter what flavor we're talking about. You know, we have rhubarb during the summer. You know, if it's strawberries, apples, whatever it might be. Like these cheesecake pops are a vehicle for whatever we want to do. You got stuff hanging out in the fridge. I like yuzu. I like a lot of different weird kind of things. This you can do anything. The sky's the limit. So with that being said, let's go ahead and it's about time to eat some food.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So now that we've got those, let's just at least ladder these up. Get a couple more going in a minute. And then let's go ahead and then get this soup going too. So kind of circling back, I know we had a lot of things working as we've been drinking some wine and having some fun. But we started off with the soup. The soup has been hanging out. We've cooked it all the way through. We've creamed it. We've tightened it with the starch, and we've also blended some of it and brought it back together. Now it's just kind of been hanging out. And the last thing that you want to do before we serve anything is just to give it a quick taste. And I wouldn't lie. I mean, it tastes really good. I think that
It looks really good.
it does. It tastes like the first taste that you're going to taste is hominy, and it's really nice. It has a great flavor to it. It's creamy, and I think it really did. It just hits the mark really nicely. Right.
I feel like we keep inching closer and closer to the food.
So we got a nice snazzy board here too. One of the things I like to do for fun outside of cooking is I like to make knives, and also I like to mess with wood. So this is like a tree that came down outside my house, and so we took it and spent money into it to cut a bunch of planks. And so as a chef or even as an entertainer, we like to, I mean, look at all the nice, wonderful things that we have, you know, to be able to put it on. This is actually, yeah, it was made in my side yard, so it's kind of neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. So with that soup, you know what? If you make a little bit of a mess, it's not a huge deal. But what we're gonna look for here, guys, take actually one of these rags
Oh,
here.
here.
No, I got you, sorry about that. Just put these little shooter cuffs together, right? And so then here is those little, it's like kind of like hay or straws.
Yeah.
So it's truly there to mirror some of that flavor of the hominy and corn. But that's it. I mean, this is fun. And instead of it being soup, usually it's something that's it's not like it's an item that I don't know. It's not super exciting, but when you put it to a smaller glass and you put stuff with it, it certainly brings up an
Yeah.
you know. I mean, it's not just a winner type thing. So we'll just get a couple of these going so we can all get a taste test.
I'm actually kind of excited to do the peanut with the soup as well. Like I think that smoky is going to go
Mhm.
really well with
Yeah.
corn. Yeah.
And I'm making a big old mess over here, guys. Don't pay attention to me.
You said you could serve that hot or cold soup?
You can, and if I was to serve it cold, I probably would make sure that the viscosity or like the texture of it is probably okay. Maybe you might want to thin it out just a bit. You know, especially because if you put it into the cooler at this point, it would probably be pretty thick. But it would certainly go good, especially on a hot day. Especially then too, if like maybe on the top, then you get some like diced cucumber, or you get something else like some lime, some other things that would kind of would brighten it up, make it a little bit lighter, fresher. So one of the last things, we want to go ahead and take some chives, chop those up nice and fine. You got green onions. Don't like onions so much, I don't put them in, no big deal. But this is just kind of that final, you know, well, how do you make stuff really good? How do you make a soup and add a little extra something to it? These little tiny chives are going to give it that extra layer of hot flavor. So
It looks pretty too.
it does, right? It definitely gives it a little contrast. Let's move a couple things around. So guys,
Terrific.
here we go. Last part here. Keep little, you know, you can take these as a shooter, which you might be wearing it afterwards. Shooter doesn't always mean to shoot it. It generally means that you're going to put something fancy in a cup and stuff, but the spoons are there to really kind of help out too. So this is, we're talking Great Plains pinchos. So again, we've got the sweet corn and hominy shooters. We have got the what we call the pig and waffle sando, which has got the pork fritter, the waffle bun, and then the Honeycrisp apple slaw. And then we have the blueberry and ube cheesecake lollipops.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and speaking of those lollipops, of course I've got another bottle of wine to go with it. And in the summer, who doesn't want to drink a rosé, right?
Right.
And I picked this one specifically because it has some really great berry notes that are going to complement, as opposed to do the contrast that I've done with everything else. It's going to complement that blueberry that's in there, and it's going to give us some good flavor. And when we were talking about making mistakes and just going with the flow, I realized I turned the refrigerator down so much that I froze all our wine. So, a fun little trick when you find yourself doing something like that is just run it under hot water and spin the bottle. You're going to have that bottle back in about 2 minutes.
Rosé
Totally.
slushies.
I thought about trying to just pivot to that.
Yeah.
So this is the Emma Reichart, also a Trader Joe's beautiful wine that hits an $4.99 price point. Yeah. Super drinkable.
They have a really nice collection of rosés.
They really
There's several
do.
that are really, really price reasonable, and they're delicious.
It was hard to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my choices.
Get in my belly.
I know. Like, excuse me, I'm gonna get everything out of the way so I'm fully ready. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Good thinking.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Right.
It smells delicious.
Yes.
You can really smell the flavors.
We got one more cheesecake pop to dip here, guys.
Yeah.
I want you guys to feel along without me.
No.
And this is the thing though too, it's like, hey, you know what, make some extra cheesecake pops because they're popular, they're a fun thing to take home and stuff like that. And guess what, you know, if you don't get to it, like here's just a good point, like the chocolate, if it gets too hard, you can put it back on. And so I didn't really go into every single detail, like you can look at the recipes and give us follow-up questions, but like, I just have some water, and it's, you know, it's simmer, and I have a bowl with the chocolate in it, and it just sits on top. It's not boiling, you can't get it too hot because then you can hurt your chocolate, but all we're doing is melting it. Guess what? You can use the microwave in 30-second intervals. But, you know, super easy deal.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's like we get done, we all have fun together and dip some pops. So.
Terrific. Well, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Let's enjoy.
Cheers. Cheers.
Very good.
Oh, I'm so excited about
I am
this.
too.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
That was amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Right, it's not too heavy either.
Right?
Especially being 90 out right now. This is wonderful.
I actually like it with the sweet corn. I mean, because it's so in season right now,
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't seem like a inappropriate choice for summer.
And that Vino Verde goes really, really nice with that.
It just really contrasts that creaminess.
Mhm.
Oh my. And I love the little pops of corn in there.
Yeah, so I mean, if we, you know, we always get changed up if it was too thick, say you wanted to change it up a bit, could always thin it out slightly, could puree it longer if you wanted to actually make it more of a shooter, which certainly would be good too.
Mhm.
I think you would lose out on having some of those textures of the corn and
Yeah.
potatoes and stuff, but yeah, nice little play. I think it did come out too good.
Yeah, that's
It came out good.
delightful. Okay, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Mm.
not a bad bite.
You can really smell the maple already when you put it on.
That was so good.
Now, I'm a saucy guy myself. I think that was very delicious. The slaw on it was really good. But after tasting it too, I mean, don't be afraid. You know what? It's all about having that right amount, but to me, it could use another touch, you know, another kiss of this. I mean, plus it's so good.
Whenever I do dinner parties, I always like to have extra of anything I finish with, and I just put it on the table in case anybody wants a little bit more.
That canned wine goes really well with this.
Right?
It's really good. I think that's the biggest shock of the day for me. The slaw is delicious, by the way.
But yeah, and that sandwich, that's really nice, you know. But again, you know, you like a little bit more sauce, put a little bit more slaw on it. You know, for me, I think that you know, I'm a big fan of vinegar. I like it. What it does is vinegars and acids like lime juice and lemon and stuff, they help lift a lot of things. So again, if I could, you know, teach anything while we're having some fun and hanging out, you know, don't be afraid to try to learn about what you like, and then that'll apply to almost anything. You know, even if somebody else likes a little different amount of salt or this or that, like learn what your go-tos are, and learn to have salt be your friend. That's one of the biggest things that I can recommend as a chef, is not be afraid of salt. So, but I feel like the pork came out really good. Super awesome of allspice here with the Vermont maple. I really love the maple. Maple obviously goes great with waffles, and then the pork and stuff too. So yeah, seemed like that came out pretty good.
The pork is cooked perfectly.
Oh yeah, so
It's
tender.
so tender.
It's my favorite thing, I think. Having people at home watch me eat.
I know.
I know, I'm so
I was just like,
sorry.
oh my gosh, I do not eat
Sorry
like a
about
Larry.
I was thinking, oh, and that fork, I'm just gonna go for it.
No.
away.
Yeah. If everyone else is eating theirs with us right now.
Yeah. We're all here with friends.
I thought the chicken and waffle, or sorry, the tenderloin and waffle sounded heavier than what it actually tastes. It's so
Yeah.
light.
Sure.
Because sometimes you think chicken and waffle, oh, that's kind of a heavy dish, but that is
Yeah, this is
perfect.
wonderful.
It's so light.
No, I think you bring up a good point though, because it almost seems like when you put the chicken and waffle together, kind of like two breaded or two light items almost
Right.
instead. So, no, I'm glad that, and I, you know, again, guys, I think it comes down to is just you get good pork. That's really what it comes down to. A lot of what you get out in the stores again is pumped with a lot of water and other things that make it to where it's not a great product, but I can taste the difference in some of this. I think I'm gonna hop onto dessert here
Yeah.
before you guys do.
Oh my god. That is so good. And the extra crunch.
I'm gonna have to have the other one. It was delicious, but it was almost like I need another one. Plus, it's like the blueberry and ube are very, very light. You know, and they're not gonna punch you in the mouth. It's got the cheesecake, and then you should be almost searching at the end for it, which I think you do.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's the blueberry and white chocolate. I'm sure you guys can taste it. Just it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, when you first bite into it, you really taste the white chocolate, but then the minute you get into it, you can, I mean, it's that blueberry
Yeah.
explosion behind it. It's nice.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
amazing.
we've had a lot of fun, you know, and again, it's like, you know, this should all be something that is fun, and if something doesn't work out, then it's all about just changing it up, you know, and quarantine season, use it. I mean, so again, the biggest piece of advice is just to find great stuff locally and find the best friends that you can, and I think we did that today.
It's terrific.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.